Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. We're just going to give it a minute or so for more people to join us. So stay tuned. All right, everyone. Good to see you. Cool. So yeah, today we are going to have VMware join us and sort of talk about getting into tech with VMware. So I will be your Codeverse Girls brand ambassador and your host this evening. So really happy to have you all here. So if you have any questions, please put them on the YouTube chat and the team will get back to you. Backstage, we have quite a number of VMware with us. We have Nikita, Eva, Irini, Simran, and Mirad as well at the back, and you'll all get to meet them as they come on. So Code for Skills is also running a few other MOOCs throughout the rest of the year, so have a look on our website and sign up to future ones if you like. I'll also share the link in the chat. So I'm really happy to welcome Mirad onto our stream. Hi, Mirad. Take it away.
Great to be here. So yeah, as Aileen said, my name is Mairead O'Flynn. I'm the University Relationship Manager with VMware. So I suppose my job is to, go to students and anyone thinking about a role in tech and try to promote VMware as a fantastic place to work. The thing is, in VMware, when you talk to most women, everyone seems to share the same story, that they somehow just fell into the tech industry, but now that they're in here, like, it's the best decision they ever made. Like I was the exact same. Now I did choose computers in university, but I hated coding and I thought I was in the totally wrong place. But after I finished university, I always seemed to work in kind of technology companies, and now I work more for the recruitment side of things. So I suppose people don't realize, how many opportunities are available in technology companies. Like, you get to travel, the pay is amazing, you get to be creative, and you really get to make an impact on the world. So that's why we wanted to put together these MOOCs, because we think that a lot of times people are put off by, technology and technology companies, because like they see all these buzzwords around and they don't know what they mean, and they think that they need to know what they mean in order to work in tech. And like, we're here to tell you that that's not the case. Most of the time, even when you work in a tech company, you don't know much about the technology. You know bits and pieces. But we have an amazing group here today on our first MOOC to talk about some kind of key areas and concepts around tech that will help you feel a bit more confident around, applying for jobs or, looking at different roles. We're going to have some other MOOCs in the coming months as well to cover like different careers that you didn't know about in tech, and also one about how tech is a force for good. So I don't want to delay the session anymore. I just want to say, if you do have questions, please just, put them in the chat, and we'll have some time at the end for Q&A with the whole panel. So feel free to ask these amazing women anything you want. And also I'll be popping in a link as well if you want to stay in contact with VMware and keep in touch. So keep an eye out for those. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Eva.
Hey everyone, welcome to the presentation today. I'm going to start first by sharing my screen. So, can everybody see my screen? I think that you can, yes. Okay, so welcome everybody. My name's Eva and I'm a solutions engineer at VMware. And I'm going to kick off the session today with a little activity to kind of, as an icebreaker, to get you guys going. So the first thing I would like you to do is to go to www.menti.com, enter the following code to enter the game, and answer the following question. What is technology? Now, what you have to do is basically just give us one word that comes to mind when you hear the word technology. So in my case, what I'm going to type down is computer. That's the first thing that pops into my mind when I hear the word technology. And I would like to know what yours is. And the idea of this activity is to create a word heat map where we're going to see kind of what are the leading phrases, words, buzzwords that circulate around with respect to kind of the world of technology. So I'm going to give you a few minutes on that. I think it will be really interesting to look at your answers. You can answer more than one word if you would like to. You have that option. But really here, the idea is to get kind of what's the general consensus when we hear the word technology. Is it about computers? Is it about code? Is it about internet and connections? What is technology really about? So I'm going to give you a few seconds. Let's see if the answers have started coming in, and they have. We have a lot of interesting words here, which is really interesting to see. As we can see, innovation, software are kind of the leading ones. So I'm going to give you a few more seconds. I think what it would be good to have is a few of our other presenters introduce themselves. So if we can have maybe Nikita come onto the call and introduce herself.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks Eva for the good introduction. Everyone, the word cloud looks amazing. So my name is Nikita Ramratan and I am also a solutions engineer here at VMware. I joined just over a year ago and I can't wait to talk to you guys more about what is technology. But first of all, let's see what you guys think. And we should also move on to introducing Irene as well.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. Thank you, Nikita. My name is Irene Spanu. I'm a senior solutions engineer at VMware, where I'm helping our customers achieve their desired outcomes by using VMware solutions and services. I'm originally from Greece, but I've been living in the UK for 3 years now. And I'll pass the baton over to Simran.
Perfect. Thank you. So my name is Simran. I'm a solutions engineer here at VMware as well, which I'm sure you've heard of one too many times now. I've been now with VMware just over 5 years, and I started with them as a graduate. So I've gone through the whole cycle of understanding what the role is from the very beginning of not knowing what technology was to now coming into understanding what technology means for VMware. So looking forward to this session with you guys.
Okay, so let's kind of reveal the final heat map. So we have had 73 votes in, which is great to see. And if everybody, the colors are a bit unclear, but if everybody can see, innovation, software, and coding are the main 3 words that are coming screaming at us from this heat map, which is really interesting to see. So everybody looks at technology from a software perspective and about creating something new, something great that is going to help improve processes and perhaps help the world and people in some way. And what we can see is coding is a big part of this. But we also have data, internet, computers. So that's really interesting to see. And now let's go back to the presentation and actually introduce to you guys what technology really is all about. So in the box below, this is kind of 4 themes in technology we're going to explore today in a bit more details. So that is security, cloud, digital workspace, and modern applications. Modern apps is short for modern applications. Now, maybe some of these phrases and buzzwords you have heard before, others you haven't, and that is totally fine because what you're going to find is that technology is such a broad spectrum of knowledge and technology in general. Now, on the side, we have other themes that are a big part of technology where big innovations are taking place, such as networking, 5G, virtualization technology, which some of you may be familiar with, but also coding languages, optimization algorithms, and automation. So with this in mind, let's move on to the first theme, which is security. And I'm going to pass it over to Nikita.
Yeah, so one of the first areas that we're going to look at is security, and you can see a few images on the screen here. You can also type in the chat what you think security means. What do you think we cover when we're talking about security technology? We have some pictures there of a wall with fire on it, so if you thought about firewalls, if you think that a hacker's always involved and it's some creepy dude in a hoodie in the dark hacking, if you think that's what hacking is, if you know what a VPN is, you can kind of just drop in the chat what you think security means to you and if you understand any of the images. And we're actually going to move over now to a little presentation that I have just to kind of get you introduced in case you weren't too aware of all of the types of security that we have involved in VMware. So first of all, intrinsic security is a term that we use to describe any approach that leverages your infrastructure across any app, any cloud, and any device to protect your apps and data everywhere. So what that basically means is that whether you're using an application on your phone, your laptop, and if you're accessing it from any cloud, we want to make sure that the data is protected through every single step before you actually get to that application. So you'll see on the next slide that security actually has lots and lots of parts to it that you might not have even heard of. So it might seem like when you open up your phone, maybe to visit your Instagram or something, it's just an instant 1 second process. But there's actually so many parts to security and pieces that the data actually has to travel through. So this is kind of a scary image, but it's just to show you how many different parts the data touches before it gets you to your Instagram page, for example. So what VMware have been able to do is break it down into some key areas where we can separate the different types of security and manage them differently. So we have endpoint security, identity security, workload security, cloud security, and network security. So here at VMware, we try to provide different types of protection for these different areas, and I'll explain a bit more about that through networking and security now. So, yeah, you can go ahead to the next slide.
Let's just move on to the presentation. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's the presentation now for networking security.
Yeah. So if you go to the next slide, we're going to introduce what is networking. I'm going to focus more on just the networking one because there's so many different parts to it. We wouldn't have time to cover it all. So first of all, we need to understand what is networking. So computer networking is the process of connecting computers or any other types of IT devices together for the purpose of sharing resources. And of course, a really common and most famous type of network is connecting over the internet. And we can also connect physically through cables and wiring, which I'll show you pictures of, or also wirelessly through radio waves. So why would we need a network? Why do we need to be connected? Well, first of all, so think of this in kind of a workplace environment. If you go on to then have sort of a commercial or corporate type role, you need to do a lot of resource sharing. So you need to be able to share your files between devices. Let's say you have a work laptop, but also a PC in the office, and also between your colleagues. And then again, you need it for communication and collaboration. Once you've shared that file, do you want your other colleagues to be able to make changes to it, live edits, and then you discuss those changes and present them to someone like your customer or your manager? Organization, we have the use of email, and if your colleagues decide to share their calendars with you, that's how you're able to organize meetings. Remote access is clearly a big one given the pandemic. We need to make sure that we're able to access our work even if we cannot physically be in the workplace. And finally, data protection. So we can be in all these different places, but how do we make sure that the data we're accessing doesn't go to the wrong hands? I see in the comments some people talking about making sure the data doesn't go to the wrong people. So yeah, we need to protect our network for that reason as well. So what actually makes up the network physically? So if you were to go inside of a data center, which is kind of where all the IT is held in a company, what would you see? You would see devices. These are more technically known as nodes. So this could be an endpoint like a laptop, printer, tablet, any kind of device like that. Obviously the cabling to connect everything together. You would have a router which connects your devices, those nodes, to the internet and also enables the devices to talk to each other. A firewall, which is a type of security that you can install to make sure that you have monitoring of the data coming in and out of your data center, and if something's detected that seems malicious or harmful in any way, the firewall can block that from coming in. And finally, switches. You'd be able to see switches which are able to receive data, and then they're able to put the data back out through ports to the end device. So let's say you wanted to print a document, data would go into a switch, it reads the data, realizes the data needs to go over to a printer, and it would then send that packet of data towards the printer, and you would get your print out. On the next slide. So this is just to show you kind of an overlay with this diagram of how the devices, the nodes are connected together. So you'd have the hubs providing the data to the endpoints, which would be those workstations numbered 1 to 9, and the data would move from the hubs through the wiring, through the switches and routers I've mentioned, to then end up at the correct node, whether that be computer 1 to 9. So moving on, this is, if you were to step in, if we're allowed to go back to offices soon, or if you know someone that worked in networking, this is maybe what they tell you about previously before the innovations that we've had today. So you would have the guy in the hard hat would be the network admin, and he'd be in charge of plugging in all the wires to all of the switches and routers and devices. And then he'd go on his computer and he'd get this black screen, and that's how he would check how the packets are moving through his system. And as you can see, it doesn't look very pretty. It looks really complicated and complex to understand. And I also have another picture, just a funny picture to show you that if the admin doesn't stay on top of it and they have a lot of endpoints to connect, they can end up with a jumble of wires instead of the kind of pretty wiring that we see on the right. So yeah, we can click ahead. So in terms of the data center, we have been able to virtualize, which means being able to take those physical pieces of equipment I showed you and recreate them virtually in software. We've been able to make a lot of progress in compute and storage, but networking seems to be something that is overlooked. And if we don't have virtualization in networking, it can actually cause challenges with businesses staying competitive, making sure that they stay secure, and it can actually run up a large bill. So moving on to the next slide, the reason for this is because if we have networking in the way that I showed you, the guy with all the messy wires, it's quite a manual process. And when there's a lot of steps and a lot of mess, it means that there's a greater chance for errors, simple human errors. And even though it can be a simple mistake, it can open up the data center or the IT environment for attack. It also means that if applications are what brings the company money, so they rely on pushing out applications to generate revenue, it takes a longer time for applications to actually be built and deployed, and that costs the customer money. So to find a better way around this, of course, VMware came again and not just virtualized compute and storage, but we also have our networking virtualization technology known as NSX. And now we can handle all of the networking and security in software, and we can make the process automated with something called blueprints, which is kind of like the instructions to make sure that the app gets processed quickly. And it's because it's more automated, we have less chance of those costly errors that I mentioned earlier. So moving on, so just to say, and a quick overview of NSX, if you ever wanted to look this up, is some of the capabilities it has is switching, routing, microsegmentation, load balancing, VPN, which stands for virtual private network, and connectivity to physical. So that's kind of the networking side. If we move on to the security now, we have to keep in mind that the environment has changed from data centers to centers of data. So before, it used to be just that data center, that room with the guy and the cables. But now we have things such as cloud. We have all these smart devices, which are known as part of the Internet of Things, such as smartwatches, which generate huge volumes of data. So now we have even more attack surface for hackers and for our perimeter to be breached. So moving on, how can we change this? So a key part of the VMware NSX technology is microsegmentation. So it used to be on the left-hand side, almost as if the data center was a castle and you have the outside castle wall. Now, if a hacker was able to breach that wall, they would have free access into your data center and they could leak any information they wanted out of there because they'd already passed your one line of defense. However, with microsegmentation, we'd look at it kind of like a hotel where, as you know, once you come into the hotel and you're given your hotel room key, that card only unlocks your room. And therefore, it's difficult and almost impossible for you to get into somebody else's room because only they have the correct key card for their room. So if we move on to the next slide, we can see the difference. So before, it just used to be the outer firewall and everything inside of it. And if a hacker was able to get past that, they would be able to take all the information and leak that, which was obviously a very bad situation. And then if we move on to the version with microsegmentation, you can see here that each of the machines that hold data have their own little firewalls around them. So not only do we have that hard castle wall on the outside, we also have walls built around each little virtual machine that holds our work, which is kind of off-putting to hackers, and even the persistent hackers that get in, once they breach the network perimeter, that hard outer wall, they still have to break through the other individual firewalls, which again is off-putting, and they might just give up. So that was how networking and security come into it. And now, as I've mentioned, our attack surface area is not just a physical place such as a data center. We also have a new area of technology emerging, which is cloud. So we have on the screen, of course, clouds. What do you think of? Again, you can write in the chat, what do you think cloud means? Do you think of actually robots are connected to this? Who can name the robot on the screen? Did you know what big data was? Or do you think of any AI ML capabilities as well? Or is the cloud just some imaginary complex place? So you can write in the chat, but I'll also move into the presentation now, just again to explain to you that this is another emerging field of technology that you might not have thought of. So first of all, what is the cloud? When we say the cloud, like my images go to the cloud, where are they actually going? What does it actually mean? Well, cloud computing is the delivery of on-demand computing services, and you can access this over the internet and pay as you go. So a cloud provider will provide these computing services, and because you're just accessing it as and when you need, you only pay for the time that you use it. So moving on, maybe these are ways that cloud is incorporated in your daily life that you didn't even know of. So if you're an iPhone user, for example, you'll know about backing up to the cloud with iCloud. Did you know that also Office 365, Dropbox, and Gmail were also examples of cloud-hosted services? So what is behind this? So yeah, when we say we're moving to the cloud, where are we actually going? Because it's not a physical place. So moving on, we can talk about the types of cloud. There's actually more than one. It's more than just saying I'm going to the cloud. Which cloud are you actually going to? So there's three types. There's private cloud, public cloud, and hybrid cloud. Now, private cloud is to do with that data center I was talking to you about, that physical place where the guy with all the wires could go in and he can actually check up on his servers, he can check up on his storage, he can check up on all those wires for networking. That's once you recreate that and virtualize that with our virtualization technologies, that would be the private cloud. We also have public cloud, which is the one that's hosted by a third party and you access that over the internet. And then a hybrid cloud is a combination of both. So let's look at this in a bit more detail. So there you can see the private cloud, and when I say it's virtualized, it's because here at VMware, we offer our virtualization technologies. So compute would be virtualized with our vSphere technologies, storage would be virtualized into our vSAN technology, and network would be virtualized with the NSX that I spoke to you about previously. And you put this all together and we would tell the customer that they now have their own private cloud that they can manage on their own. If we move on to the next slide, you can see that public cloud is very different. It's at the opposite end of the spectrum to a private cloud because it's run by another company. And you can see the most famous ones up there. So Amazon is actually the leading one on the market. Then we have Azure. We also have Google Cloud Platform. And what they do is they actually provide the compute, storage, and networking that I've just mentioned. A private data center person has to pay for themselves. Here, these companies are the ones providing it for you. And then the customer would just rent out a space and they would just be using the services, but they're not actually looking after the platform that's taken care of by Amazon or Microsoft or whoever you're using. And then you just pay like a monthly fee to them for renting out that space. Next, we have the decision to move to public cloud is actually quite a complex one. So public cloud has a lot of great benefits. If you continue to stay in IT, then you'll definitely hear the conversation moving more and more towards public cloud. And the reason for this is because, like I said, you're not managing the behind the scenes. That platform provider such as Amazon is managing it for you, so there's less of a headache on the management side. It also provides a lot of resources that companies need very quickly. So let's say you're a company who at peak times you need to have more on-demand resources. Cloud is able to fulfill the need during those peak times, and you don't really have to worry about that. You just have to pay your subscription, whether that be hourly, monthly, yearly, and you're only paying for what you use. But the thing is, when we go public, like I mentioned with security, you're opening yourself up because you have more attack surface area. Since it's managed by somebody else, such as Amazon, how do you know that your data will be protected? And there's also a concern over something called cloud lock-in, which is if I go to Amazon, but I want to use parts of Microsoft, for example, how do I make sure that I don't stay just with Amazon and I still have the opportunity to use more than one cloud? So moving on, that's why some customers, well, a lot of customers right now are stuck on the private cloud because they believe that the security and of the data should be done by them, especially if they're gathering a lot of confidential and sensitive data. They don't want that data to leave their private cloud, their own walls, and they want to be able to manage things very rigorously and very strictly. However, the issue is that running a private cloud, a virtualized data center, can be quite a challenge if you're a small or medium business. It's quite costly, it requires a lot of maintenance and a lot of time. So they want to go to public cloud, but the security might be too much of an issue. So what could be the solution for that? So moving on, it would be hybrid cloud, because hybrid cloud is the best of both worlds. You're able to have a private cloud and a public cloud work together so that you have the scalability and flexibility to get the resources you need, but you can also determine your own security policies and the way certain parts of the data are managed so that you don't have those security issues you are worrying about. And this is where VMware actually comes into it. Because we're able to provide the best of both. So just to understand the difference between public and private, one step higher, if you think of the public cloud as an apartment, a nice fancy apartment that you rent, you can't really make much changes of it to your own. You can only go in and use it as it is, and you just pay your rent every month until you move out. And then of course, you don't pay for it anymore, and it maintains its standards. If there's any repairs needed, you would contact your landlord and they would have to sort that out for you. Whereas a private cloud is like buying a house. You have to have the upfront costs covered, so you need to have enough money for the deposit, and then once you're in it, you need to be paying it off of your mortgage. And if any repairs occur, it's on you to sort that out, pay for it yourself, and manage it at all times because you're the homeowner. So a hybrid cloud is where VMware comes into it, and we help to bridge the gap between. So here at VMware, we're cloud agnostic because we believe in having giving our customers the power of choice. So that's how we avoid that cloud lock-in I was talking about. We've actually partnered with all of the major cloud giants such as AWS and Microsoft and Google, etc. So we like to call ourselves as the Switzerland of the cloud world. And we do this so that customers don't have that cloud lock-in. They can have multiple cloud accounts if they would like, and we can help them manage both their on-premises, that private data center, and the public cloud part. And we help them maintain visibility across both environments. And why would we use the cloud? So I mentioned at the beginning, you might be using clouds such as storage if if you need to back something up to your cloud from your phone. But if you decide to go on and take a career in tech and do something such as a solutions engineering role like myself, the reason you'll be talking to customers is not for such a personal use. It would be for something on a much larger scale, such as data center extension, which is the ability to scale up during those peak times. Like I mentioned, if a company has a peak time and they need a lot of compute and storage and networking scaled up, they can burst out to the cloud for that period. Also disaster recovery. So this is if your physical on-premises data center is at risk of going down through a hurricane or a flood, for example, you know that you can back up you can move your data to the cloud for that little period whilst you sort out that flood or whatever's happening physically on premises. We can also have cloud migrations, just if you are refreshing something on premises or you're running some tests on premises, you can have your data safely stored in the cloud whilst you run those tests or get rid of some hardware and then bring everything back down once all your tests have been finished. And also, some companies just want to take advantage of the fact that applications can be built cloud natively, which means that applications can be now built in a different way to make the most benefit of deploying them on the cloud, which is something that Irene will cover later. So the final thing to say is just to highlight kind of how VMware come into this. So like I said, there's private, public, and they're very opposite ends of the spectrum. VMware come in by offering help to our customers through hybrid. And we do this because we like to provide our customers with a consistent infrastructure, consistent operations, and consistent networking with our virtualization technologies that I've mentioned. We help our customers with their daily operations and management, and by giving customers a consistent experience and having choice to use more than one cloud with no cloud lock-in, we help them, take advantage of the cloud and still taking away those security and networking concerns that we saw earlier. So now I'll pass it back over to Eva.
Yes, thank you, Nikita. So now we move on to the digital workspace section. I guess this may be a term that many of you may have not heard before, but it really is what it says. It's all about anything digital or technology related that we touch or come across on a day-to-day basis. So that includes endpoints like computers, laptops, desktops, smartwatches, or rugged devices. That includes all of the applications that we interact with on a day-to-day basis and being able to access them from different devices with different operating systems. And that also means being able to actually work from anywhere. So the digital workspace, the whole idea around it is to build out a technology that allows normal people, employees, students, anyone really, to be able to work from anywhere on any type of device securely with any type of application. And these are some of the icons that you may be familiar with that I think summarize the digital workspace really nicely. So now I will go in a little bit more detail with this next presentation. So the pandemic, I think everybody felt it, and it really has accelerated and transitioned the way we learn and we work now. So these 5 pictures demonstrate what the new normal is. So sitting at home, whether on the sofa or in the home office or on the dining table in the kitchen, and working from a laptop. So we're no longer within the corporate or university or work premises. We're at home, but still working. Now, we can summarize this as kind of 3 main scenarios. And this is kind of the scenarios that the IT industry works with and builds technology around. So first, we have 100% remote employee work. So that actually includes everybody from VMware currently. We're all working from our home office, as our offices were closed due to the pandemic, to ensure everybody can continue working but stay safe. And that's actually a huge number of companies that have followed this method. Then we have hybrid employee home and office. So actually now that we're kind of approaching a more, I suppose, not as a hard phase that we were in the pandemic, some employees are allowed to go back to the office, but nobody really will be going back 100%. Now, what companies are starting to offer is a hybrid model of work. So you can choose to go into the office maybe 3 times a week, and the rest of the 2 you can work from home. And really, the whole idea is to ensure that the end user experience is the same whether you're in the office or you're at home on the sofa. And this applies also to anybody really, so universities, teachers, students, etc. And then we have the third one, which is 100% at location premises. Now, this mainly applies to frontline workers. Again, using the pandemic as an example, doctors, nurses, dentists, they didn't have the option to work from home, and that is because they actually need to physically interact with their patients. So we need to ensure that also we're providing good technology for these type of employees to make sure they're as productive as possible. And actually, they have a high satisfaction rate at work. Now, this is a very interesting statistics from the industry that I would like to use to emphasize how important the employee experience is for employees. And this actually isn't just for jobs and people working. This also applies to students. So 73% of decision makers within a company agree that the employee experience is more critical than ever before. And what the employee experience is, what I mentioned before, it's making sure that your employer or your student is happy at work, that they are working in the right location that suits them, on the type of device that they used to, or the type of device that's going to meet their needs. And they have secure access from anywhere to the type of applications they need to use to work. For example, a lot of us at VMware will be using a Microsoft Office, PowerPoint or Word or Excel. And what VMware has made sure is that we're able to access those applications, whether at work or at home or in the office, in a secure manner. So, but this is essentially what has become of the anywhere workspace. Now, we're no longer working within the data center parameters, and we're no longer protected by this firewall that Nikita was talking about before. So we no longer have this protection around us. We're everywhere. And actually, it's not just us, it's our applications as well. Again, going back to what Nikita said, some of those applications that we're using, like Microsoft Office 365, are actually hosted in the cloud. So they're not within the company's data center anymore as well. And what you can see from this slide is that the traffic is going everywhere in all sorts of directions. And this is not very secure, as you can imagine. So IT professionals are starting to ask themselves these sorts of questions. How do I protect my data outside of the data center? How can I support employees to work from personal devices? How can I restore secure access? So there's all these pain points now we're having to start thinking about with this new way of working. So it says it very well at the top. Now we have different teams, different challenges, and different products. And at VMware, we're continuing to evolve to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. Now, we can summarize all these questions in 3 pillars. So these are kind of the main issues and challenges companies are trying to solve with the anywhere or digital workspace. So we're trying to overcome the suboptimal experience. What this means is, for some of us working from home, we may not have the best internet connection at home. And therefore, our Zoom meetings or our WebEx seminars may not be as good as they are in the office. There may be latency, the performance may not be as good. We might not be able to use the camera because we don't have enough bandwidth. So how do we overcome this? Second, fragmented security. Again, we're no longer within the data center parameter. There is no parameter really anymore. So how do we protect that data that's going back and forth, bouncing between data centers, home, clouds? How do we protect them? And operational complexity. When you don't have a defined parameter, how do you define what's safe? How do you define the processes? How do you implement security settings? So we also need to think about the operational complexity. So the management on a day-to-day basis of data, devices, users, applications. There's just so many factors to think about out there. And what companies are kind of working towards are these three solutions. So this is what they're trying to, this is the kind of strategic solutions they're trying to implement to solve the previous challenges we just spoke about. So to be able to manage a multimodal employee experience. So to be able, this essentially means to be able to support any type of work experience. So in any location, on any device, on any network, for any user with any applications. Secure the distributed edge. So this means that now that we're working at the edge outside of the data center, how do we secure the data that's going back and forth across the networks? And how do we automate the workspace? So how do we use artificial intelligence, machine learning to create compliance policy, provision them or roll them out when they need to be, maybe when an attack is detected? So how do we also optimize the performance of our data and applications at the edge? Now, I can talk about so much here, but I'm just going to focus on the first bullet point, as I think that's the one that most of you can relate to as end users. So now, I think I would like to use this slide just to show you how many things IT administrators have to think about when they're onboarding their employees, the kind of tasks they have to think about on a day-to-day basis, and what happens when an employee needs to be onboarded. Now, when if you guys have been through this or you're about to enroll for a job, these are actually the processes you will end up going through or have gone through already. So you will have to sign your contract prior to starting work. You will have to choose the type of device you would like to work from. And, the company will have to provide you a way to access the applications and data you need to do your work. And then there's, different settings that need to be set for different users for security and compliance reasons. Now, once you're onboarded, there's all these factors that the IT administrators have to be aware of on a day-to-day basis to ensure that the end user experience for you as employees is good. So, for example, if an employee is having issues with the laptop, maybe their VPN's not working, maybe the laptop keeps switching off, the mouse is not working. How do you contact your organization if you're working remotely and tell them what the issue is, and how do they solve it remotely? If you're having troubles with accessing an application, how again do you contact IT and let them know? How can you easily go up, look up what holidays you have, book them without having to go back and forth between your manager, your HR reps, your team lead, etc.? How do you get a really good connectivity even with a normal Wi-Fi bandwidth at home? And there's just all these other pain points that IT administrators need to think about every day. And very importantly, when you're offboarded, how do we make sure that the laptop or the desktop you have been using, and all the sensitive data on it has been erased? So these are some of the solutions And I appreciate a lot of the terms are not familiar to you guys, but that's absolutely fine. The idea is just to kind of allow you to understand how many solutions actually need to be implemented to ensure a good end user experience for employees from the day they're onboarded to the day they leave the company and they are offboarded. So, for example, when I started work, I wanted to work on a Mac. So the company had to ensure that they have a bring your own device policy to work from. Bring your own device means that you bring your own, for example, in my case, Mac, and the company is able to support it and keep it safe and secure with latest patches, etc. How do they provide remote onboarding and access to resources? So there's tools in place that can be implemented for that. Now, securely access applications. So there's lots of methods that companies can implement to ensure employees are securely accessing applications. One of the ways you maybe are familiar with is multi-factor authentication. So maybe when you are logging into your Gmail account or your OneDrive, you have to log in with a code from your phone for security reasons. So this is what multi-factor authentication is. And there's just all these other solutions that are implemented in place to ensure security, but a good end user experience at the same time. Now, let me take you through these in a bit more details. So these are the solutions that we offer at VMware to solve some of those challenges. So first, we offer a unified application catalog. Think of this as Google Play or the App Store. And this is exactly what it looks like. You open it, you open the unified app catalog. And in there, you just have a catalog of applications that you can click on and start working from. So, different organizations are going to, of course, enroll different applications because, people in different industries need different applications. So this is a really easy way to have all your applications in one place. You don't have to look all through your documents or computers and desktop and just kind of waste time. It's all neatly put together in one place. Single sign-on, SSO stands for single sign-on. What this means is once you log into your unified application catalog, and then you click on an application, so in this case, if I click on Google Chrome, you don't have to authenticate again. So once you sign on into your unified application catalog, you have immediate access to all your applications. And this is really handy because what is happening on a day-to-day basis is people having to remember 10s and 20 passwords and usernames a day for different applications. And imagine how tiresome that is and boring, how much time you're wasting. Remote onboarding is essentially what it says. Employees, when they receive their corporate devices, they're already onboarded. All they have to do is open the laptop, switch it on, and they're into the system and working on a secure and compliant machine. And then there's just lots of other features that we offer. So just to summarize, the whole idea is for companies to provide technology to be able to cater for any use case. The use cases we have here is you bring your own device, corporate-owned devices, so devices that the company or university or whatever organization you're working with gives you, and purpose-built. So this would be mainly rigged devices, so maybe the automated check-ins at the airports or the kind of scanning checkout machines at the supermarket, usually devices that are not managed by people physically. So we need to be able to manage all of these and support any type of operating systems. And there are many out there, and it's very complex because each one has a different underlying code. So how do we make sure we support these? And of course, support any type of platform. Now, I'm just going to give you an insight into another type of technology, just to give you, again, an idea kind of the different types of technologies we offer for a good end user experience for remote work. So this technology is called Desktop Virtualization. And what we're doing is we're separating the operating system from the hardware. And then essentially we are streaming it like a Netflix movie. So essentially what you can do with this type of technology is have a Windows experience on a MacBook, which usually wouldn't be possible, but with desktop virtualization is. And that is because you just essentially enter an application and you stream the Windows experience like you're streaming a Netflix movie. So this is it in a shell. And it's important because streaming a desktop experience like movies keeps the data in the data center. So within that firewall parameter safe, but at the same time, the end user has a good end user experience and has access to those applications and data that they need. So it also allows organizations to give their employees or students a personalized corporate or education desktop on their local devices. And what are the benefits of this? So maybe employees have laptops that are not supported anymore, like Windows 7. Well, that's okay. Those laptops can be repurposed to Windows 10 laptops without an update through VMware Horizon, which is actually the desktop virtualization solution at VMware. Also, we have tools in there to optimize communication tools such as Zoom and Microsoft Teams and WebEx seminars. This means that if the end user doesn't have a good connection and has a very small bandwidth, for specific applications like Zoom, they will still be guaranteed a great end user experience. So no latency, a clear picture on video, and really good and crispy audio. And with this, I am going to pass it over to Irini.
Thank you, Eva. So I was really pleased to see that a few of the themes that emerged from the Menti poll were modernization and DevOps, which means I'm on the right track in terms of the content I'm going to cover today. So yeah, let's kick off. If we could move on to the presentation, please.
Sure.
Thank you. So in this last part of our technology talk track, I will touch upon application modernization on a high level. But first, I'm going to ask a question. Why do we care about applications? Next slide, please. I personally take all the applications I use day in and day out for granted, but what would happen if they were all to go away? Can we imagine a life without them? Apps are so embedded in almost every part of our daily lives, from messaging friends and family, watching our favorite shows and movies, shopping online, to booking a ride home on a late night, applying for jobs, and accessing healthcare services. The list is endless. Moving on, from our perspective as application users, we are content when the app interface is intuitive and easy to use, when apps are performant, meaning they do what they are supposed to do quickly, and when they are secure, our device and sensitive personal data are protected. From the perspective of businesses offering their services through applications, customer satisfaction and experience is at the epicenter of their careabouts. An organization's application strategy is directly linked to the end customer sentiment and overall experience. To that point, a recently published Forrester consulting study, which was commissioned by VMware, reveals that nearly all technology executives from various industries across the globe, such as financial services, government, healthcare, manufacturing, retail, and telecommunication services, agree that customer experience begins and ends with the application portfolio. The emerging trends from the research are the ones you see on your screens. 88% of those IT leaders agree that improving the application portfolio improves customer experience. 82% said that they agree that customer experience is tied to revenue growth, and 53% of those executives said that they have a revenue growth goal today or expect to have one in the next couple of years. So applications are important to consumers and providers alike. Next slide, please. So shifting gears, let us take a step back and try to define what an application is. In IT, an application is a computer software package designed to perform a specific function for an end user or in some cases for another application. In order for it to run, software is in need of hardware resources. Let us take a journey through time and explore how applications have been run from their early days till today. Moving on. For the remainder of the presentation, I will assume that from your experience with using personal computers, you're already familiar with key hardware components, such as the CPU and RAM, as well as the notion of the operating system, such as Windows. Initially, as we see on the left-hand side of this slide, applications were deployed directly on top of computer hardware called the physical server. What this means is that the application software ran on top of an operating system that was installed on server hardware. In this deployment mode that we often call bare metal, the hardware resources of the server, i.e. the CPU, the RAM, the disk, the network interfaces, were dedicated to the application. As you can imagine, each time a new app had to be deployed, a new server was needed. This server sprawl brought about the need for bigger spaces in data centers and increased their operational expenditures linked to power and cooling. In 1999, VMware revolutionized the IT landscape by virtualizing the server hardware. The concept of virtualization is predicated on taking physical server hardware and carving it into pools of virtual hardware. What this means is that by introducing the hypervisor layer, which we can think of as the emulation layer, each application can see and use its own dedicated virtual resources, virtual CPU, virtual RAM, and so on and so forth. This allows us to run multiple apps in the form of virtual machines or VMs atop the same physical server. In this way, server hardware is utilized more efficiently, server sprawl is contained, and businesses save money and energy. There exist various hypervisors in the market today, such as VMware CSXi, Microsoft Hyper-V, open source KVM, but VMware is undeniably the leader, owning more than 80% of that market. So far in our journey in time, applications were traditionally architected as bulky pieces of software that lacked modularity and that were difficult to scale and challenging to maintain and upgrade. You can think of them as big rocks or monoliths, as we call them. With the advent of the new millennium and multi-cloud, which is the term we use to describe the usage of more than one public clouds, the world needed to rethink how applications are architected and deployed, and this was placed front and center. Apps now needed to take advantage of the unique capabilities of the cloud. Modern apps were required to be hardware agnostic, easily scalable and elastic, modular, meaning that they should be comprised of components designed to be relatively simple, discoverable, reusable services, what we call microservices, as well as resilient, designed to survive failures. This is where containers came in to redefine how apps are built, run, and managed. Containers can be thought of as the wrappers of modern apps. Compared to virtual machines, they are more lightweight, they can be spun up and down faster, and they are built once to be deployed anywhere. Moving on. So if we were to define app modernization, what is it? It's the process of updating legacy software to take advantage of the benefits of modern computing platforms and infrastructure. And why bother? Because we realize benefits such as we simplify the management and maintenance of applications. We can test them more efficiently. We can ship new versions of applications more quickly. We can scale applications more easily. while all the while utilizing modern infrastructure. And by doing all of the above, we are decreasing costs. Next slide, please. So does this mean that all applications will now run as containers? Last year in VMware, we conducted a survey by spending 3 months studying leading global organizations and speaking to over 1,200 IT leaders. According to that research, 73% of those respondents said that they plan to containerize existing applications. 41% said that they plan to build new applications using containers. And 75% said that they plan to use Kubernetes as the orchestration platform for modern applications. Now, note the word plan. The research shows that both container and Kubernetes adoption is still in early days. A lack of skills, concerns about security, and overall complexity are still holding many organizations back. So we could conclude that even though containers are growing aggressively, as it stands, most workloads are still being deployed as virtual machines, and virtual machines will remain a vital part of organization strategies. Moving on. Navigating a diverse app landscape, which includes bare metal apps and VMs and containers, while at the same time looking to adopt one or more public clouds alongside their private data centers, can be overwhelming for enterprises. As Nikita already alluded to, in VMware, we have engineered technology that hides the complexity of this convoluted IT landscape and offers choice to our customers. There are 2 things I would like for you to take away from this. VMware is uniquely positioned in the market today because, number 1, our technology offers the simplest path to multi-cloud. To address the challenges that are linked to the verticality of each cloud, considering that each one has its own individual siloed stack of hardware and software and services, we are taking a horizontal approach that abstracts those differences between clouds and fundamentally simplifies operations across any environment, be it private cloud, public cloud, edge, or telco, as you can see at that bottom layer on your screen. Number 2, going a layer up, VMware's technology builds on the solid foundation of consistent and simplified operations, enabling organizations to free any application and speed up its delivery. Next slide, please. Staying on that application layer, VMware Tanzu is the umbrella name for VMware's modern application solution portfolio. Fun fact for you, the word Tanzu in Japanese refers to a modular form of cabinetry alluding to containers. Some of you might have heard of the term DevOps, as it turned out from the Menti poll. DevOps is a set of development practices that combines integration of software development, dev, and IT operations, ops, with automation. DevOps breaks down the barriers between these 2 teams, dev and ops, to shorten the time it takes to build, test, and release software of high quality. In line with the DevOps mindset and guiding principles, we support our customers across their application portfolio by bringing together platform tools, methodology, and culture, as you see there on the slide. The Tanzu portfolio is designed to simplify multi-cloud operations while freeing developer teams to move faster and access the right resources for building the best applications. We also help our customers bring their dev and ops teams together under the shared goal of fast release cycles, working in synergy to deliver transformative outcomes for their businesses. If you're interested, you can learn more around our Tanzu set of solutions by searching for VMware App Modernization on your search engine of choice. Next slide, please. So I hope you found this topic interesting. Thank you for your attention. And now I will hand it over to Simran, who will talk to us about all the wonderful resources of IT Academy that you can leverage.
Perfect. Thank you, Irene, for that. So who else was seriously excited about technology after hearing from all our amazing speakers? Because I seriously was. So today, I guess you've seen a glimpse into the tech world, right? And now, if you'd like to go into deeper and like really understand what you've sort of heard today, do not worry, we've completely got you covered. So if we go to the next slide quickly, please. So Marie will share the link for this particular site with you guys in the chat window. So if you wanted to basically understand more about the general concepts of IT, you can pretty much follow this link that Marie would then share. And essentially, it's all about getting started into IT. And this particular training is available to you right now, and it's a free training. So, do go ahead and check that link out to understand exactly the basic concepts of IT that were discussed today, essentially going in a tad bit deeper on understanding really how the in one of the common difference between virtual machine and containers. To go into even deeper, do check this particular link out, and it'll help you understand even further. Next slide, please. And for those who are super curious and wanted to know even further, or really wanted to understand further of understanding really what these concepts mean, what you can do is sign up to the VMware IT Academy. Here you can get a deeper understanding of, say, virtualization. We've got cloud, we've got storage and networking components, some of which were discussed today with you guys. And basically, when you complete these courses, what you actually get is, if we go next slide again, please, you'll get these shiny badges, right? And the reason I emphasize on that is because these are recognizable by, and respected by employers across the globe, and especially in the IT industry as such. So you can actually achieve these badges once you do sign up to any of these courses and complete them, and then include them in your CV or your LinkedIn profile. And I see as a great recognition to have it, and to have it on your CV and have it in the back of the pack. So definitely good to check it out. Slide, you could see there is the next slide, please. There's a YouTube channel with a lot more information on. So if you were to go on this particular YouTube link, you could actually get a more in-depth understanding of these different concepts that we were discussing today. So do feel free to check these resources out. They are available to you. They are free. And really, and one last thing to just mention here quickly is the fact that do connect to any of one of us on this call as well. We're happy to help you and assist you and talk to you through other different components of around IT and what really entails when working for an IT company. I did see one of the comments again regarding coding, whether it's required to have coding as part of your being part of the VMware. I am not a big coding fan. I only code when I'm bored, like in my own spare time. I would not be able to do that if I was to do that for a living. So it's not exactly something that you have to have in place. So if you needed more questions answered in those sense, do connect with us on LinkedIn, and we'd be happy to help you. Over to you, Marie.
Fantastic. Oh my God, I learned so much myself. Now we're going to jump into the Q&A because we do have some time. In front of you there, what you can see is our two other sessions that are coming up. So today we wanted to give you a bit of an overview into the concepts, because sometimes I feel like you can't even think about applying for a job because you're like, I don't know what these words mean. And like, it's not that we expect people to know the ins and outs of all these things, but it's just having a bit of an understanding. And I think technology, more so than anything, is the one kind of a job where you can learn a lot yourself. You can go and Google things, and you can do our VMware IT Academy courses, and you can learn so much. So that's what today was about. Now, our next session is going to be the 19th of October, and that's about the careers you didn't know existed in tech. And we'll cover a bit more from, what these girls do and what are the other careers that you don't learn about. Because I know when I started in university, coder was the only job that people talked about. Now I know there's so many different roles, and yes, as Simran says, you don't have to code in all of them at all. And then the last session we'll do is the technology is a force for good, because I think a lot of people forget how technology is making the world a better place. So we want to make sure that we cover that. So All right, there is some questions coming through, and we are going to kick off. I'll kick off with a couple of the cloud ones, Nikita, if you want to answer them. Tamara was wondering what happens when the cloud gets filled up.
That's actually a super interesting question, because we just assume once it's gone to the cloud, it's taken care of, right? So as I mentioned with cloud, it should, if you're talking about public cloud, which I assume you are, it's should be taken care of by the vendor. So they should be able to store as much as you need to put up there. I'm not sure how much you're planning to put. The limiting factor in terms of cloud would be, at the end of the day, as much as software is helping everyone, hardware is still necessary. So hardware has a limited life cycle for around, let's say, 3 to 5 years, maybe 7's pushing it. And so, of course, the cloud provider, as much storage and compute that somebody is using up, they will have to keep on replacing that hardware. So technically, it could be infinite, but the hardware would be the limiting factor, and the cloud provider would have to keep on purchasing more so they could provide their customers with more. But
Perfect.
yeah, I hope that we don't run out anytime soon.
And Irani, I was wondering, Tara wanted to know what's the main difference between a container and a virtual machine.
Yeah, that's a good question. I touched on it during my presentation, but essentially it comes down to how the application or the workload is being run. So as I said during the presentation, virtual machines are more heavyweight compared to containers, and they need the hypervisor layer for them to run. Whereas containers are a bit more lightweight, and they have come to be based on the unique features that the cloud has to offer. So they're more elastic, they can be spun up and down more quickly. And yeah, I mean, if she goes into our app modernization Tanzu pages, there's a really good link that explains what are containers, what is DevOps, what are microservices. So we can share that perhaps.
Perfect. Okay, there's a really good one. I think, we've talked already a little bit about, like, you don't actually need to have coding. Well, what are the skills and attributes that you need to have in a career in tech then? And maybe Simran, you can kind of answer that one.
So when it comes to attributes and skills that you need, I think the one and topmost would be passion for technology. I think that is one of the key things. So you don't have to have the knowledge for it, but more on the job itself, having that passion for one technology and having those communication skills, those networking skills, those soft skills that we don't usually consider when applying for jobs, because I think we're so fixated on looking at our CVs and to know what grades we have and what courses we've done and what degrees we have. But focusing more on those soft skills that not many people talk about are probably one of the key things that employers do look for, especially in a tech company where you're actually going to be, yes, dealing with a lot of technology, but also speaking to customers who are, at the end of the day, humans. So it's going to be a lot of human-to-human interaction, contacting and communicating with them through the means of, well, right now Zoom, but in face-to-face as well. So ideally, having those communication skills and the passion for technology would be the two key areas, the skills that you could bring forward with you. On top of that, I would say as a way of wanting to understand more and really getting into the hang of technology, and if there were courses that you were looking into doing, I would definitely say either getting started with IT and just sort of understand the basic concepts of IT. Nothing too deep, nothing going into deeper of understanding how the coding side of it works. It'll be great if you want to know it and want to bring that.
Okay, Simran, you've kind of cut out there a little bit, so we will move on to the next question. I think this is a good one for Nikita because Swiss, you didn't come from. I was responsible for her, chasing her around and making her come working for VMware. So did you always know you wanted to work in the tech industry, Nikita?
No, I did not. So actually interesting fact about me is that I actually came from a medical background. So I was more going down the medical doctor route. And then I came into Mareed and she definitely convinced me to come to VMware. And you know, it's been the right decision. So even though it's not from the background that I'm from, it's still kind of achieves what I was looking for, which is to help people and connect people. And technology is still able to do that in so many different ways. You've seen how many different parts that technology actually touches. So you don't have to come from an IT background at all to be able to work for an IT company, because as you've seen, there's so many different aspects to technology. Plus behind that technology, there's different parts to it. Like Irini even touched on how much we look at customer experience. So you don't have to come from a technical background at all. You just have to be able to understand the company's technology and then be able to implement that in your customer conversations or whoever you're helping and help solve the problem. And here at VMware, you've seen there's so many resources to get hands-on with the technology, which definitely helped me when I was training. So I've been able to convert myself from a medical mindset to a technological mindset, and now I'm a whole solutions engineer, which is a very technical role here at VMware.
Brilliant. But do you code?
No, I do not. I'm an engineer, but I definitely do not. I wouldn't know where to
there's
start.
rules that you don't know to code. And I suppose, Eva, one question for you. Were you nervous kind of starting in a tech company?
Yeah, I thought I was going to hate it. And I was, before I had even started, I was ready to leave because I just had this idea in my head that, it's very strict. It's a 9 to 5. You kind of keep to yourself. You hard code. You have your break, and you go back to work. You go home. There's no social life. But that kind of prejudice was flipped on its head. And the tech world is actually so dynamic and so diverse. And there's always something happening. There's always something new coming onto the market. There's always something evolving. It's very fast paced. And if you like that, then definitely join us. And you just get to learn so much more. And sometimes you invent something yourself, whether it's a new process or a new product or whatever it is. And I think the best thing about the IT industry is it gives you so much freedom to be an innovator yourself. VMware especially provides a plethora of resources, from training courses to gaining certificates, to seminars, to soft skills training, to get you on board so you feel comfortable in the respective role that you're in. So if you can't code, but if maybe you decide to go to a coding job, or you decide to be kind of a systems engineer like one of us, if you don't know anything about tech, that's totally fine. As long as you're passionate and you're ready to learn and you're ready to put the work in, just come on board. We'll get you trained up and ready to work with us.
Brilliant. Okay, I will throw this one to, maybe we'll have a couple of people. Irani, what's your favorite part about working in VMware?
Ooh, that's a great question because I'm a relatively new joiner. I think the thing that excites me the most is the technology itself. Because my previous background was around networking. So I was working for a hardware networking company before I joined VMware. So I think there's a lot to learn around software. How do you sell it to customers? How does it work? So for me, I'm still in that early stages of being super excited about the technology itself.
Brilliant. And there was a question for anyone that does code. What would you say is the kind of like easiest coding language to learn?
There's no such thing as easy coding language. So, no simple route. But I have to say, if you enjoy it, I would go with Java. Start with Java. I think it's the best go-to coding language that you could start with, and C++ afterwards if need be. Python is very, very hot topic right now. But I would say if you're starting off, stick to Java and go on from there.
Brilliant. And Simran, I might throw this one at you as well, because I think some of our, like Nikita and Eva, kind of joined in a virtual world. What's the coolest thing you experienced in VMware?
Coolest thing has to be the culture and the fact that my job does not
We keep losing Simran. It's always at the good part.
It's the best part. It's like it's not something you worry about, because that's what you think of when you think of IT roles. It's you sitting behind the computer 24/7 having to do some work. And I was so relieved that my job didn't involve that. It involved a lot of traveling, involved a lot of speaking to all kinds of people. And I think one of the key things which you'll understand is when you're speaking to people, you're not really talking to just engineers. You're talking to like CEOs and CTOs when you're kind of like going out to your customers, which in itself is quite cool when you get into the swing of things and really start talking to these customers. So that is one of the coolest parts for me.
Perfect. We might end in that question and ask everyone. So Eva, do you have what's the coolest thing you think about working in VMware?
The coolest thing is my team. Everyone is just so much fun and open-minded, and everyone's sort of constantly trying to help each other. And actually you form a very good relationship, so that if you ever need somebody to jump on an escalation, or ask somebody a question, ask somebody to train you or something, nobody will never say no. Everyone is always more than happy to help you, and I personally appreciate that so much.
Okay, Nikita, same question.
I think the best part has to be sort of connecting both what Simran and Eva said. It would have to be that the network around me, I know we've talked about networking in a technological sense, but it has to be in terms of a people sense here at VMware as well. Because like I said, I came in completely non-techie and I was like, where do I even start? And the thing is, at VMware, there is, even though we have the different ranking levels, like of course I have a manager and that manager has a manager too, and there's CEOs and everything. At the end of the day, I was a newbie and I was still given the go-ahead to contact senior people if I needed help. And they didn't view it as, why is this new little graduate who doesn't know technology coming to me? They were more than happy to set aside 5 minutes in their busy schedule just to introduce me to VMware and make me feel part of the community. And I've fostered a lot of relationships with people who are like way higher than me. I've just been here for a year. These people are like vice presidents and they're so eager to actually onboard the new talent and get to know you, because they want to know what the future of VMware looks like, which obviously they've gone past for a long time. So definitely it has to be the fact that everyone in the community wants to help everyone, regardless if you've started 1 day ago or you've been here for 10 years. Has to be that.
Brilliant. And Irani, to finish up.
I answered the question, didn't I, in the beginning?
Oh, were you the first one to answer that one?
Yeah.
The coolest thing about VMware. Okay. All right. Sorry. All right. Well, that's all of us. So I suppose the main thing that we wanted to cover today is give you some ideas about the concepts, give you the links to some more of the material. But again, please do note that we have 2 more MOOCs coming up, and that these ones will be really, really focused on the different roles in VMware. And there'll be a lot more about, advice, career tips. You can ask people from different levels. We'll have people from being very non-technical to very, very technical. And you can ask them anything. We'll basically have like an hour and a half for just questions and engagement and stuff like that. So it's going to be a fantastic session. So thank you so much to all our speakers today. These girls went and developed all this information and content and stuff, and it's been fantastic. And I think that they're able to take concepts and explain it in a way that you may not have understood the basics before, but now it makes a bit more sense. And as I said in the chat, even if you are 5% more aware of some of these concepts, that's working towards technology. You're never going to learn everything. You're always going to be learning, and it's more about being in a situation where where you can find the information. So thank you, Aileen, for having us, and I will end there.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, ladies, for your time and for going through it. Lots of comments. That was a really informative session. So just a reminder for everyone on the call, this link will still be up for the next 2 weeks. So if you ever want to revisit it, you can. And there's they were saying there's lots of MOOCs coming up. There's 2 more, maybe with this panel or a different panel, but same VMware. So you can definitely learn a bit more. So it was very nice seeing the audience. So I'm going to end the broadcast. So have a good evening, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.